Hi everyone, Mike Hughes here. Today we're going to have a very sensitive conversation. Yes, sensitivity labels in Microsoft 365. We're going to talk about what they are, where they're used, how they're used, and I'm not going to go into the depths and the details of all the little nuts and bolts, but I'm going to give you a good overview of how to use them. So here we go. I'm going to switch over to my mini me. There we go. Mini me. I'm down mini down in the corner. We're going to show you in the admin consoles. We're going to start. And we're going to go to this console first. So this is the console we're all very familiar with. And don't you love it? It doesn't show you everything. You got to expand it out. So we're going to go over to security. And what's interesting about security, oh, see, this is a demo tenant. You gotta love demo tenants. Let's do this the manual way. Protection.office.com. Okay, here we go. So if you're a Microsoft partner, you want to set up a demo tenant, go to demos.microsoft.com and you can set up free demo tenants. And they have data and all that different kinds of things in there, so you can go play. And I use demo tenants all the time when I'm doing these videos or training people on different things. So protection.office.com. That is the current production or GA, general release, whatever you want to call it, console that Microsoft is using today. There are new consoles, and you get this nice big blue bar that tells you to go over to these new consoles, and that's when I tried to click on it. I got that 500 error. But these are the new consoles. A lot of that stuff is still in preview, and a lot of the settings that you're going to find for sensitivity labels, you're not going to necessarily find over there quite yet. It's all in progress. So let me give you a little background here. Sensitivity labels, where did they come from? Well, they come from Azure Information Protection, AIP, which before that was Rights Management, or IRM. And so it's evolved over time. Microsoft has rebranded it 3 times. And there's various teams involved. So if you're talking about Azure Information Protection, that's one team. If you want to talk about sensitivity labels, that's another team. That I found this out very the hard way. Let's put it that way. When I was working with a customer on implementing this, and we were running into some technical problems, and I won't go down that road. So sensitivity labels are here under classification, and they are used in several different areas. And basically, what these are essentially a security policy or a policy that you apply to a document that puts some kind of a protection wrapper around it. It could be as simple as throwing a confidential across as a watermark, or a particular footer, or if the message were to go out, it can only be seen by a certain group of people or certain individuals, that type of thing. So there's different layers of security you can wrap around a document, a file, as it were. So if it were to leave your organization, it would be protected wherever it went. Hence the term data loss prevention. If a data were to leak out, if a former employee had a document and they had a whole bunch of stuff on, let's say, their personal device for whatever reason, the moment they tried to open that, if it had data loss prevention on it and it required them to authenticate to that document, they wouldn't be able to. They wouldn't be able to see it. So it protects that document. So I'm going to not start here at sensitivity labels, but I'm going to step back one layer into Azure Information Protection, because the two are really still tied together at this particular point in time. So I'm going to go to portal.azure.com in this demo tenant. And you can see it's a demo tenant. And then I'm going to go up here to the search bar and search for Azure Information Protection. There we go. So Azure Information Protection. Let's let this load. There we go. So a couple things. I'm going to start here at the top, just real quick, at the quick start. You've got highly confidential protection Falcon, and then they've got some other things that they've built into here. This is for demo purposes, but these are policies, or see label display name. And these labels have different policies or protections assigned to them. And these are what you're working with. Now, these end up synchronizing over to sensitivity labels, and we'll get to that in a second. But let me work from the top down here. So we were on labels right now, and then you have policies. And policies are where you group labels into a policy and assign that policy to particular users. Now, what you have to remember here is Azure Information Protection as a product is going away, but there's still functional components of it here that are still very active within the Microsoft world, as we'll call it. And the primary one here is this global policy. And this global policy is a policy that's applied globally across your organization. And one of the things down here that you set in the global policy that's not available over in the sensitivity label area yet, but it will be soon, is this button right down here, Add and Do Not Forward button in the Outlook ribbon. So this is an encryption component that when you enable this for your user base, global, because this is a global policy, right? What it's going to do is it's going to add to your Outlook ribbon a sensitivity label type, okay? Do not forward, meaning that if whoever the message is sent to, let's say I send a message to you, okay, and I go to my Outlook ribbon and I use the sensitivity label do not forward in my Outlook, and I would show it to you, but I'm just turning it on now, and sometimes it takes an hour, or Microsoft says it takes up to 24 hours. Normally it takes about an hour, or sometimes less for it to show up. But once this is enabled, it will show up as a sensitivity option in your Outlook ribbon. And if I sent this message to you with that enabled, and you tried to forward that message to someone else, you're going to be stopped dead in your tracks. It's like I've put an encryption wrapper around that message that locks it down just to you. And this is very, very important. And the reason I say this is if you're doing email or emailing sensitive information to other organizations, and that organization needs to share the document within that organization, then it's you have to include everyone in that organization that wants to see it, because not only does it encrypt the message, but it also encrypts the documents that are attached to that message. So any person who receives an email with an attachment, not only is the message, but the attachment is encrypted to the recipients. So even if someone tried to forward it or to save that document to a USB drive and took it to somewhere else and handed it to somebody, that person they handed it to could not open it unless they authenticated as one of those recipients. So this is a very, very important button when it comes to protecting your information within your environment. And it's the very first thing I tell people to turn on. Just go and turn this guy on and click save. Because it will help your organization protect documents in a very simple way when working with other organizations, because most of us are doing it via email. We're transmitting documents via email, and this will make sure that those documents don't leak out into the wrong hands. So that's where I wanted to start on this particular one. And I don't really want to go too much into Azure Information Protection here, other than I'm going to show you one policy, and we'll look over in the sensitivity label side and see how it works over there. So I'm going to go over to policies here real quick. I'm sorry, labels. And I'm just going to create a new label here, just to show you what this kind of the settings in here look like, and then we'll look over it on the sensitivity label side, because these, like I said, these two areas are merging together. I'm sure the AIP team is going to be merged into the sensitivity label team at some point in time, but out right now it's not there. So we've got this Project Falcon one. We've got a description, and this description will show up, and let's see if the policy is not published, so I'm not going to do that. This description will show up in the sensitivity label. When you hover over it, it'll show this description, and within your Word or Excel or PowerPoint. And sensitivity labels can apply to any Microsoft document, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. It can even do PDFs, but it's primarily Microsoft documents is where these get applied to. Teams, are now involved. SharePoint's now involved, where you can apply these to entire document libraries, which is pretty slick. So if you got an accounting document library you really want to lock down, or you got a special project like this one's called Project Falcon, you can really lock down these documents to a particular thing. So colors, protect, how I want to protect it, cloud keys, and you can go into here and you can add permissions and co-authors and review or viewer or custom, and you can say who has what rights. And the important part of this component here of understanding sensitivity labels and Azure information protection is this piece right here. You can get very, very granular in what the recipient or what an individual can do with the document. So if I'm the owner of the document, I have full rights, right? And then I can assign certain groups of individuals as co-authors, kind of like we saw on the previous screen. But now I can add other groups of people, right, that I want to have, they can view and open it, right? They can print it. They can't save it. They can't copy it. They can't reply. They can't reply all. They can't forward. They can't change the rights. They can't save as. We can run macros in there and full control. So those are the granular options that you can wrap around a document to specific groups or individuals within your organization. It's really, really interesting on what you can do. And it takes a while to wrap your head around this, but there's a lot of detail in here. Visual markers like headers, footers, watermarks, what you want the watermark to be, font sizes, colors, horizontal or diagonal, conditions to automatically apply labels. So if this is for auto detection, auto application. So if I have a particular keyword like Falcon in this particular case, if the system detects the word Falcon in a document that someone is working on, a label could get automatically applied to that document without any user action. The system just does it. So it's a lot of granular control that you've got in here. I don't want to dive too much farther into this, other than there's certain things that you can do here that you cannot yet do in sensitivity labels, but it's going to get there. But I want you to make you aware of this area, because the two are synced together. They're tied together. So you're going to have to go look at both sides of this fence when you're working with your organization, or you're working with a customer and you're walking through that. You've really got to walk through, what do you want to protect? Why do you want to protect it? How do you want to protect it? And then do some use case scenarios. What if? What if I send this to this? What if I send this to this? What if I send that, this person, that person, blah, 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 blah. How do you, what's going to happen with the particular information? But at the end of the day, that label is tied to that document. So if you want to share it to someone and they want to share it with someone else, the label that's applied to it, either you don't have a label onto it and you trust that individual at the other end, or you do put a label on it, and then that person who receives it lives with whatever that consequence of that label is. So I'm going to stop there on these in this particular area, other than the fact, like I said, you need to go in here and take a peek and poke around in this particular area. So sensitivity labels. Here they come. And notice highly confidential and Project Falcon, which line up with highly confidential and Project Falcon, right? These are templates down below here, okay? So those are the two that are there, and they line up with these two that are here, okay? And then you have label policies. So policies, see, are these labels, so that are applied to particular groups of people. So you have the label, and then you have a policy that grants the right to use that label to groups groups of individuals, or the entire organization, or whoever, or single individuals, however you want it to be. In this particular case, this one's published to all. Users must provide a justification, remove the label, or close it. So I'm gonna just edit this one. So sensitivity labels to publish. Choose sensitivity label to publish. This one is highly confidential. Is that the one that we're on? Add. And then next. Who, users and groups. And it's set to all right now. Okay, all users. Next. Users must provide a justification to remove the label or lower it. So if you change the label, you have to say why you're doing it. You can have a requirement to apply it to emails and documents, provide users a link to the custom help page. So if you have a custom help page, I like to link to the Microsoft page on how to use sensitivity labels. And apply this label by default to documents and email, highly confidential. So you can go as far as saying every single document and every single email has a label applied to it, period. Think about that. What would you apply? Some organizations apply just general business to everything. So that way they can track everything that's leaving the organization or where it's going. They can track every single document. They can see the activity of that document. They can even rescind documents. It's real interesting what you can do with this. Now I'm going to go next, what your name of your policy is, and then so on and so forth. I'm going to go and cancel this. So that's how those work. Using sensitivity labels with Word Online is pretty straightforward. You just open up a Word document, and this goes for Word and Excel and all those online documents. And mind you, you have to be in the targeted release to see some of this at this particular moment, but it'll be rolling out broader to everyone. But when you fire up a document online, what you're going to see is a sensitivity button over here. You click on it, and then you can have whatever's published out here to you as an account will be there. And so like if I click on this one that says employees only, you'll see down here in the bottom of the toolbar and confidential only, employees only protected. So if this Word document were now to get in the hands of somebody in the outside world, they would never be able to open it unless they were an actual employee of our company. So that's the type of protection that you can apply when it comes to sensitivity labels. And if I turn this off, you can see it just pulled it right off. So the rule for this particular sensitivity label or policy does not require me to justify why I have to remove that rule. If that policy was on, or that feature was on within that policy, then I would get a little prompt, a box would come up and say, hey, why are you taking this rule off? And you have to enter that. And then if you have logging turned on, it'll capture that in the log data. So that is how that works. When it comes to the desktop applications, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, so on and so forth, again, you have to have Office version 1910 or higher to see this. And you can also have the agent installed, and I have the link down below in the notes, so you can install the agent, which gives you more enhanced features of sensitivity labels. It doesn't give you all the functionality of the AIP agent, which Microsoft pulled from the shelf a little while ago, but hasn't yet given all those same features over to the sensitivity label side, but that will be coming shortly. But you see the sensitivity button over here. And again, same kind of things, employee, protected only. And then what you'll see down the bottom, it says retrieving templates from the server. So that's going out online, looking at those templates, and then it's applying it. So the interesting thing about this is whenever you have a document that has sensitivity labels or you're applying sensitivity labels, the application is going to reach out online, see what those sensitivity labels are, and if a policy's been updated or a feature's been updated within that policy, it's going to get pulled down and applied to that document. So these documents are always calling home to see. And if they can't call home, then they just stick with whatever the last settings were that are stored within the document. So you don't have to be connected for all of this to work. It will just work. Authentication wise, you do have to be connected. Unless you're the author of the document. But anyhow, you have to be connected for validation to work. So you can have a label that doesn't require validation, but then you have labels that do require you to authenticate or validate your account. So that's for the desktop ones, just that sensitivity button up here, and very similar to what you're going to see online. And let me go back over here, and then auto labeling is the other one. Auto labeling is where it will automatically search out documents for you with a particular keyword or something like Project Falcon in this particular case, and automatically apply a label to it once it finds it. And you can do policies based on, is there a social security number? Is there a credit card number? It can find all different kinds of things. And that's where these sensitivity info types come in. And Microsoft provides you a very long list of sensitivity info types. And you can see this long list, Brazilian CPF number, whatever that is, EU passport number, sorry, all these different information types that are there. And you can create your own custom types too. So if you have custom keywords that you want to do test here, and then add an element, and then there's all these different rules like a keyword list or whatever you want to put in there, and how many words have to be in there as a minimum, and all these different rules and what the confidence level of that is. So if you have a custom project that's in like an acquisition or a disposition or something like that, you can put searches in and auto labels in place so that if someone creates a document with that word in, and you know it's a unique word and it's not going to be found anywhere else in general, if the system picks it up in Teams and OneDrive and an email, wherever it might show up, that label is going to get applied and that document is going to get protected. So really, really cool stuff that you can do. And it does regex pattern-based detections and all kinds of stuff. So if you have like employee IDs with a particular pattern, you can search for those things and all that. So AIP, sensitivity labels, those are the highlights. You can apply them in Word, Excel, PowerPoint. You can also do them in Adobe Acrobat files, can be applied to Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, auto detection, auto labels, all these different things. But there's one other area that you can use it at, and that is in data loss prevention. And data loss prevention, or DLP, and there's a couple of demo policies in this tenant that we'll take a look at here. This first one is called U.S. financial data, and we'll edit this policy. And what this policy does is, yes, it's turned on, or I'd like to test this out first, which I always highly recommend whenever you deploy a new policy. Test it, make sure you know how it works. Show policy tips in test mode. So what that does is someone's depends on the data type here, and we'll look at locations here next, but email, SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive, wherever the data type is. So this is preventing data from leaving your organization, right? When someone's trying to share something outside of your organization, this is where this DLP kicks in. And versus sensitivity labels, it can still be within your organization. You can apply a label to it, and then if someone tries to send it out, that label follows it wherever it goes. DLP is detecting stuff as it's trying to leave your organization without a policy already applied to it. It's looking at it to see what it is. And but I recommend doing tips first, or no, you can keep it off for now and I am just creating this and checking it out. Locations, email, SharePoint, online, OneDrive accounts, and Teams. Now, here's the interesting thing. You really can't create the labels, data loss prevention policies like this. What you have to do is you have to create two separate ones. One for Exchange, because it has a different set of rules that you can utilize with Exchange as stuff is going out via email versus what's being shared through SharePoint, OneDrive, or Teams. So create two policies when you're doing this, but I'm going to leave this checked as is right now. But you can choose who it's going to, who it's applied to, right? And the policy settings itself. By default, when you create these policies, there's a low, high, and a low and a high setting, a low threshold and a high threshold, meaning, well, here, let's just click on the rule and we'll show it to you. And you can determine whether you want to utilize this or not. But so in this particular case, if it has between 1 and 9 with a probability of 85 for a credit card, U.S. bank account number, or an ABA routing number, instance counts, that's how many pieces. And if I've got up to 9 ABA numbers, right, between 1 and 9, it's going to do this. And in this particular case, only people within my content is shared with only people within my organization. Everyone, only the content owner and the last modifier and the sign in will continue to have access, block people from sharing, and restrict access to the shared content. So basically, it's going to block and restrict access to that document, right? Whatever it is, wherever it's trying to go, it's going to be blocked. And only the content owner and the last modifier and the site admin will have access to it. So whoever owns that file, if this document tries to leave the organization, only the content owner, only the creator, the author of that document, or then the last person who modified it, plus one of an IT admin people are going to have access to this file. So if it were to go stray in the world, it's going to get stopped dead wherever it lands, unless it's one of those three groups or individuals that see it. And then who gets notified on this when this event occurs, and then users can override yes or no. So and then different incident reports and so on and so forth. So with a DLP, a data loss prevention policy, you can really prevent your data from being lost based on what its type says. But you have to be careful because your accounting people are passing routing numbers around and things like that. So you've really got to spend some time on testing and fine-tuning this versus just a mass deployment. Otherwise, you're going to create havoc with your organization. On the email side, when you create a policy that is exchange-only focused, you get a different, I'm going to walk you through a new one. Financial documents. We're going to do US financial. We're going to go next. I'm going to go call it test. Okay, next. We already got one called that, US Financial 2. Next. Let me choose specific locations. I'm going to do exchange only in this particular one, because with exchange only, I can put an auto encryption rule on the outbound side of it. And I'm going to go next. And notice it was that same 3. Okay, next. Notify users when content matches the policy. So whoever's sending the message is going to receive an email back that says, hey, by the way, you just sent this message out and it contains sensitive information. Let your support desk know that you're going to do this, because they're going to get calls. But hopefully you've already educated your users and they know how to use it. You've done a proof of concept and a pilot and you've tested this. That's the right way to do it. Detect when specific amount of sensitivity is being shared at one time. Detect when the content that's being shared contains at least 10. So, it has to have at least 10 of these things, right? It could be, I only want it if it has 1, right? If it has 1 social security number, I want to stop it dead in its tracks, right? If it's a list of people, like personal email addresses, and because you can create a custom sensitivity label that maybe for your customers that have Yahoo and Gmail, and they have a lot of those kind of personal accounts, well, you could create a custom sensitivity label for all those domains, and then if it picks up a mass exodus of greater than 10 of a whole bunch of an attachment with a bunch of those domains in it, it's going to encrypt it as it goes out, or it's going to stop it in its tracks to prevent it from going out. Send an incident report email to the IT staff, your compliance officer, whoever it might be in your organization, whoever you want it to go to. And I like Microsoft does this. I'd like to test this first. Please, thank you. And then show the policy tips in test mode. So here's the thing on this. If your IT group is going to be testing this first, don't check this box, right? Because you're going to restrict it to just your IT staff, and they're going to play with it. Next thing you do is come and check this box, turn it on, do some more testing, make sure the policy tips are working, make sure all that's working, get the policy tips that you want. Subsequently, a proof of concept, you're going to do a pilot group, and then they're going to take a look at this and get their feedback on it and make sure you're not going to be disrupting business, or if you are going to be changing the way businesses communicate with each other because you're now encrypting documents as they leave your organization. Now you need to have a business-to-business conversation on how to work that out. So there's a lot of dynamics here. And then next, and then create. So this one is specifically Exchange focused, remember. So we'll let it create it. And then we're going to go edit it. And we're going to put some conditions on this. So now we're going to talk about the different policy settings that you can put in here. I'm going to do low first, and I'm going to edit this rule. And I'm going to put actions. Okay, the action I want, restrict or encrypt the content. Okay, encrypt email messages and choose protection setting. Okay, encrypt. So, because this policy is only for email, I can do this. If I have a policy that has all the data types, I can't do this. I'm going to get a warning message that's going to prevent me from doing this. So that's why you're going to have to create policies that separate out your OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams files from email. You're going to end up having two policies that do different things based on what you want to do. But if you want to do this, you've got to separate email out completely. And what this will do is, as that document is leaving, if it's detected at that particular low level, it's going to encrypt it and allow the document to go out. Okay. Now, if I hit a high threshold, okay, what's my action going to be? Add an action, restrict or encrypt, restrict content. Okay, I want to block these people, everyone. So I'm going to stop this thing dead in its tracks. Okay. Or only people who are given access to content. So I can start to choose what I want to do, including encrypt, okay, of what I want to do with this particular file. So you can have different things that you can do to a document or attachment based on the threshold that it occurs. Now, I'm going to cancel out of this, say yes, and I'm going to go back to low and high. So something to consider here is Microsoft gives you these two thresholds, low and high by default. You may not want two. You may just want one threshold that rules them all, right? One rule, and you just turn that guy off, or you take that one and you delete, well, you can't delete it, but turn that one off, and then you edit this rule and you just adjust the thresholds to any, okay? And notice the low is 1 to any. That's interesting the way they created that by default. So normally it's 1 to 9, but you can set whatever threshold you have here. And in this case, 1 to any. This is the only one you need. So this policy would apply to everything. Point being, there's different methods of applying policies, different thresholds you can apply, different actions you can apply to particular types of documents. So when you're deploying this through the business, you're probably going to have some stuff that is going to be corporate wide that you're just going to do, right? But you're going to have other things that are very specific to projects, to certain types of information like personal information, PII, credit card banking, financial data, healthcare information, whatever it might be, that you're going to have to fine tune these. So this is not really an IT implementation of a security thing. This is a business implementation. This is a business conversation that you have to sit down and have. You need to have the technical people in the room that understand how it works. You need to have the business people in the room that understand how the business operates, and you guys need to work together on working how you want to protect your information. What's important to your information? What would cause reputational damage to your organization if this piece of that information got out? What is that information, right? And how do you want to protect it? So that's what you really have to think about when it comes to sensitivity labels, information protection, data loss prevention, encrypting things, because once it's encrypted, okay? And this particular area can really upset some people if it's not done right and it's not well communicated and it's not well trained on. So I'm going to stop there. That's the highlights, okay? And I know that seems like a lot, but those are the highlights. And we can dive deeper, but now it starts to become a business conversation. How does your organization work? What do you want to do? What information do you need to protect your reputation and not get sued, but still operate, right? So that's it. I'm going to stop there. More to come, but if you have any specific questions, let me know. I'm more than happy to do quick little snippet videos and show you specific things if you're interested. Other than that, have a great evening or a great day or whatever it is for you wherever you're at, and we'll talk to you all later. Goodbye.